Hello and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville for August 12th, 2024. We have regrets, I believe, from Councillor McNeice, and the rest of us seem to be all in our places, and be they virtual or real. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, Council? Madam Clerk, none are declared. Council, would two of us like to move in second, resolving into a committee of the whole session? Councillor Dudek and Councillor Elger, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that carries, and we're in committee of the whole. Council, you have 8 consent items before you tonight. Can I look for a decision from you? Councillor Dudek.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Any objection? There being no objection or separations, the consent items are adopted as presented. And there were quite a few. And that brings us to our one public hearing item, the public meeting report for a zoning bylaw amendment sought by Mattamy, Joshua Creek Limited, Bressa DUC, and we have staff, Muzaib Riaz, here for questions, and we have delegations, Catherine McEwen representing Mattamy, and as I understand it, we have 2 volunteers from the residents who'd like to share some thoughts with us, and of course we'll poll the audience after the presentations to see if there are any others. Madam Clerk, can you facilitate a presentation by Ms. McEwen? Welcome, Ms. McEwen. I'm going to trust you to explain the nature of this session, that this is not a decision-making meeting. This is an issues-identifying meeting. And over to you.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. My name is Catherine McEwen from Corsiac Urban Planning, here on behalf of Mattamy Homes. Next slide, please. The subject lands are identified in red, located on the north side of Dundas Street East, on the west side of William Cutmore Boulevard. Next slide, please. The subject lands are part of the Mattamy Joshua Creek subdivision that extends north. Zoning was granted in 2021 for the entire subdivision, including the Dundas Urban Core Block. Phase 1 of the Dundas Urban Core Block was approved in 2022 and is constructed with 2 12-story buildings with 328 units. Phase 2 has received conditional approval for 7 stories with 163 units and is currently under excavation. A site plan application has been submitted for Phase 3, which includes 1 7-story building and 2 12-story buildings with a total of 503 units. Phase 4, which is shown at the southwest corner of the site. Design and details for this area are still to be determined, but the maximum height will be between 8 and 12 stories. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated Dundas Urban Core Area, which permits medium and high density residential uses up to 8 stories and 12 stories with Section 37 bonusing agreement. There was a town-initiated amendment to the North Oakville East Secondary Plan in 2018, which was OPA 321, which removed the density cap, which is the FSI requirement, leaving height as the governing factor. Next slide, please. The subject lands are currently zoned Dundas Urban Core Performance Zone 1, Special Provision 56. Phases 3 and 4 are subject to Holding Provision 29. Site-specific provisions under Special Provision 56 include the permission of additional building types, increased maximum height requirements for apartment and mixed-use buildings from 2 to 6 stories, increased maximum height permissions with the Section 37 agreement between 9 and 12 stories, and minimum number of dwelling units, and specific regulations for mixed-use buildings. The DUC zoning still contains a minimum FSI of 0.5 and a maximum FSI of 2.5. The faint orange line, which you can see, indicates the delineation between Block 200 and 226 of Draft Plan 2014-12004, which have been registered and are now Blocks 146 under M Plan 20M1229 and Block 20M1269. Next slide, please. So through this application, we're proposing to delete the maximum floor space index requirement, bringing the zoning into conformity with the secondary plan. And we're also requesting that the entire block be considered as one lot for zoning purposes. Next slide, please. The climate change measures that have been taken into consideration for these lands include consideration of solar orientation with strategic building placement, landscaping measures, including soft landscaping for water infiltration, the use of light-colored paving to minimize heat absorption, and energy-efficient luminaires and bulbs, as well as geothermal technology. Next slide, please. In May of this year, informal public meeting was held virtually. Notices were mailed out to over, I believe, 275 addresses within 240 meters of the subject lands, and the notice was also posted on the town's website. There was 15 participants, including Councillor Adams. Thank you for attending. And a summary of the comments included traffic, intensification, height, vegetation buffers, and fire concerns. Next slide, please. So just to conclude, Phase 1 was approved in 2022. Phase 2 received conditional approval in 2023. OPA 321 was approved by Council in 2018, leaving height as the governing factor to removing the FSI requirement. So we're requesting a rezoning to remove the FSI requirement per the secondary plan, as well as a technical rezoning amendment to consider the entire land holding as one lot. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if anyone has any questions, not tonight, please feel free to contact myself or Mr. Reyes.
Thank you very much. Before I ask if there are questions, would you like to say how people can reach you?
Was it not on that last, on
I
the
couldn't
final
see-
slide?
I ask only because I didn't see it there.
Oh. There
Oh,
we
there
go.
you go.
Sorry.
We didn't show that slide.
I guess I didn't say next slide, please. Sorry.
All right. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Council, are there questions for the delegate? All right. Well, Mr. Kuhn, thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate the time you took to bring us your information.
Thanks.
And Madam Clerk, would you like to call the delegations?
Rebecca Lee and Rui Tan.
Are they simultaneous?
Yes, they're together on one form.
A duo, okay. Come on down. We look forward to hearing your information.
My name is Rui Tan. I'm not an expert. Good evening, everybody. I'm not an expert of engineer or anything like that. Just in the neighborhood. I would like to know FSI. I know there's phase 1, phase 2 in construction right now. What are the FSI for the current phase 1, phase 2? What does it mean by removing FSI for the, for the whatever, for the subjected land? What does it mean for residents in the area? Knowing removing FSI, is it like there's no restriction for building, like how they want to construct the building? How does the builder ensure the health and safety, fire issues, for the, all the residents in the neighborhood, as well as are we be able to sustain with all the residents in all those phases for the high-rise, mid-rise, high-rise building? We have all the resource to support the residents. So that's my question is.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Riaz if you would like to offer an explanation of the FSI and height change that the delegate explained. Perhaps you can make it clearer.
Through you, Mayor Burton, absolutely. So FSI is the floor area of all buildings divided by the lot area. So currently, the site as a whole has an FSI requirement of 2.5 maximum. With the official plan amendment 321, that FSI requirement was removed from the official plan. So the zoning now still has that requirement of FSI. This zoning bylaw amendment application is asking to remove that FSI requirement to conform to the official plan, which where the FSI requirement has been removed. The FSI essentially is the amount of building on a site divided by the area of the lot. So with more buildings coming in, being developed on the site, the FSI requirement can be it's not been met yet, but with more buildings coming online with the future phases, it'll be met. So might be exceeded. So which is why they're asking to remove the FSI requirement.
Okay. Do you have plans for what's the proposed FSI gonna be once this eliminated?
Mr. Riaz, what I'm hoping you might make clear for people is that because FSI was removed from the official plan, it sort of needs to be removed from the zoning because the zoning has to conform to the official plan. It's sort of a planning 101 step that I don't think is, as I understood it from other meetings that we've covered this on. So I look to you experts in planning to explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, as Mayor Burton has said, so FSI requirement on zoning, which is still there, is zoning bylaw amendment is just attempting to conform to the official plan where the FSI requirement has been removed already.
So the rest of the answer has to be how you're using height instead of FSI to limit the amount of building.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so sorry, I also have a question regarding because it seems like more and more building will be constructed in the area. How Matami will maintain like at least like a better environment for the current residents because building a condo can be years after years, and also we. Also concerned because is there any more like park or entertainment space in between the buildings? Because for now, for the current community, we only have one small park which serves the whole community. So we just want to know if there's any more park will be built near the condo area to serve the community.
I think the delegate tried to deal with that by saying that's to come later, if I understood her correctly. The exercise in front of us appears to be just I hesitate to use the word, but I'll try so that the experts can correct me. It's like a housekeeping matter, almost. And the planning for the area proceeds after.
Through Mayor Burton, that is correct. So, so that will be done at the time of the site plan phase. Right now, this application is just dealing with the zoning bylaw amendment to remove the FSI requirement. The specifics of the site, how it's going to be developed, will be done at the site plan phase.
So you should stay involved and stay tuned, and you'll have a chance to influence that as it comes up. In the present situation, the FSI it will be removed because it doesn't belong there anymore.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Stay involved. Councillor Adams?
I'm sorry, I had a couple of questions for the delegates. If you wouldn't mind coming back, I just wanted to clarify a couple of questions that you had. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and you may have been online in the previous meetings, I'm not sure. Did you attend the?
first time.
Okay. Some of what you asked was similar to what other neighbors asked, and I've captured a number of those comments and concerns, and I've sent it to staff, and I'll reiterate them publicly when we're done with the delegations for everybody to hear. But you asked a couple of questions, which I did cover in the material I've sent to our staff around what's the impact of removing the FSI maximum. But you asked a couple of questions, both of you, about what community resources are available and will they be adequate. You asked specifically a question about what resources there are. It wasn't clear to me whether you also meant parkland or whether you meant some other things as well.
Schooling,
Yeah.
yeah. Is it adequate for, like fire concern when they have high buildings, things like that?
For the additional residents that might be there.
Also,
I'm sorry.
Also, the interruption of the construction.
So the nuisance factor of the construction is what you mean. So I also captured that question around nuisance for noise, vibration, dust
Yes.
during the construction itself as issues for our staff to consider in their review. So what would happen is those issues go to our staff would report on them and come back with a recommendation report to council, which would respond to the questions that have come up, either saying, yes, those are issues that need to be responded to and this is how they should be responded to, or they've already been considered and this is how they're responded to. But your questions about the community resources, including things like schools and parkland, are broader questions as opposed to just specific to this one application or this one development. But they're logical questions, and I don't think they've been fully responded to in the materials that are there. In as much it would be helpful, I think, for our staff to provide the community master plans for the recreation materials that are in the broader community. It's not specific to this application, but I think for people like yourselves to understand what to expect in the future in terms of parkland and what will be there, I think that would be useful for you. So the land that's on here, whatever might be part of the site plan and open space for the residents that live in these buildings, they're not really public. They would be part of the condominium lands, but they would be obviously amenities for those residents. So to the extent that there are amenities there, it helps to offset the need in the public space. So anyway, thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's more. Councillor Haslett-Thiel also has questions.
Actually, my questions are for staff, but I want to thank you for coming out and the excellent questions that you raised. It's important. You obviously invested in the community and you want to have a place that you can enjoy for years to come. My question is for staff, though.
Thank you.
Just in terms of when you come back, can you show, further to Councillor Adams' comment, the actual full layout that includes parkland? Because my understanding is site plan doesn't come back to council, and yet the public obviously wants to know that layout.
Absolutely, we can do that in our recommendation report.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for coming out.
Yeah, sorry, one more question. We
Sure.
also want to know if there's any entrance, like a separate entrance to the condo building, because we only have like one entrance to the neighborhood right now, so we just want to know if there will be like heavy traffic, like increase in that area.
The report says that that'll be decided later, so I think that means maybe, for now. Usually it's as needed, so. Mr. Riaz, did you have anything to add?
Through you, Mayor Burton. So there is a separate entrance through William Cutmore for all these 3 phases and a potential 4th phase.
Oh. Oh. least one thing came through. Oh, Councillor Adams?
So on that question, I think the answer is no, there's not a new entrance, there's the existing entrance.
That is correct. Yes,
Right.
it's a separate entrance. Yes.
Yeah, so they have their own entrance, but it's not a extra entrance, which I think is what the residents are asking. And so I don't want to mislead the residents into thinking that there's going to be another entrance point on Dundas for this particular application. And with respect to the site plan, I think the site plan materials are in fact already available on the town's website, are they not?
Through Mayor Burton, that is correct. Yes.
So it is possible for you to go online and actually see the elevations of the buildings, the bird's eye view of the site and where the 3 buildings are that they're considering. The 7-story building that's closest to the homes on the north end, and the 12-story buildings that are closer to the Dundas side. So you can see that site design, you can see the driveway entrance, and you can see the planting regime that they plan for street trees within the design of the application. So I urge you to look at those. If you can't find them, either send a note to our staff or to myself, and we'll make sure that you can find them to see them.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there others? Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation?
Edwin and Jose Salvador.
We welcome you. We look forward to your information, and you can help to identify issues around this issue.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Edwin Salvador, resident of Upper Joshua Creek for almost 3 years. And for that same reason, I've been experiencing all the issues that my previous neighbors and the ones that attended the previous meeting raised as issues. First of all, I would like to express my disappointment and my actually just to say the disadvantage that we have as single residents, because we don't know any much about construction. We don't know any much about how this floor space index works. And the only thing that we receive is a letter saying there's going to be a town hall, and here are some numbers of what we're going to discuss, and it's about this floor space index. We don't know. We have a real disadvantage. We cannot compete with Mattamy, who has years and years of experience. And that's really something that for us is very, very hard to do. This is not our job, but we're trying to do what is more important for our community, because we're the residents of that area. So most of the questions have been answered already. There are some questions that were raised by some neighbors in the previous meeting, but I see that some of them are not answered yet. Some of them, like what you just said, well, later we will figure out. So I don't think that is fair. If there's a planning for building, the planning should include many of those details. If we want to eliminate the floor space index, what it really means, are we going to have an overpopulation in that area? Right now, with the construction that we have, that is only for, I think it's phase 3 of that building, it's really hard to circulate on the entrance of our area. Is very hard, and there's always trucks of Mattamy bringing construction material, causing traffic, causing noise, and those are the main issues. So our question is, what will be the impact in our community, and for how long will it be? Because, as I said, 3 years, and we are still in a site of construction all this time. Are we going to wait another 3 years for this to finish? Are we going to wait 5 years or more? What does it mean?
Okay. Well, first, this matter in front of us is only taking the FSI term out of the zoning. It doesn't change, whether we take it out or not, it doesn't change that there's going to be construction. So your questions are really premature. They belong, there's a process that continues as the other buildings come forward. And those steps are when your questions are better answered. For your core question, though, which is how long will construction go on, it can go on in a new subdivision, and this is the same thing as a new subdivision. New subdivisions can take years to finish, and construction can go on for a very long time. And it depends on the market. The builders will build the buildings as fast as they can sell them, but if the market is subsiding, there'll be a period where they wait. These are things that don't really have, I mean, that part of the equation, you know, the economic impact is beyond the reach of all of us here. I personally have never seen a hard and fast rule for how long a subdivision would take. I've heard that they go from 3 to 10 years, depends on the size, depends on the uptake. Your counselor, you have two counselors, Counselor Adams here and Counselor Lischina online. They can be very helpful to you in information about these things, and they can keep you informed as the subdivision continues. Ms. McEwen in her presentation had a line on one of the slides that talked about an extra entrance would be decided later as the other buildings planning unfolds. My experience over the last 18 years is if the need, you know, if the traffic studies show a need for it, then it's required. And if it can't be justified on need, it's voluntary on the part of the builder. I probably have taken longer than I'm supposed to, and I'd like to turn your attention to your counselor, Counselor Adams.
Okay.
Thanks very much. I appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you for raising the construction traffic issue. I'll add that to my list of things that I ask our staff to report back on. Construction traffic is obviously something happens that during construction, but it's also something that the town is able to provide some mitigation to or some relief to by requiring construction traffic to use particular routes to respond to things like mud tracking. So if mud tracking occurs, we have tools available to us to try to make the builders clean up after themselves, those kinds of things. So there are tools available. Sometimes they require somebody to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm experiencing mud tracking in order to get a response to. So if there are those kind of things that you're seeing, please call us and let us know so that we can try to respond better to them. So.
Well, I think we have raised our hands and we said, hey, there's traffic, there's noise. We don't have any space for the children in the area. As my previous neighbor mentioned, we have just a small park. So there's no enforcement on the builder to do and to build those common areas. And they just focus on building more floors and building more houses. But that's not the way that we want to have our community. We cannot handle that. You can go and see that park is full of children in the afternoon, in the evenings. And it's because there's no space where they have to go. Why don't you ask them to do that first, and then they can continue with the plans of the overcrowded buildings that they are making?
Well, thank you for the suggestion. Mr. Planning Director, would you like to help us understand this issue better?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. From a parkland perspective, there's a set amount of parkland which the town will be able to acquire and to develop across all of North Oakville, including this area. One of the things that the developers do try and do is make sure the parks are there and built by the time people are moving into the neighborhoods. In these types of developments where we have more of the mid-rise style of development, there are opportunities there for additional amenity spaces to be constructed on site by the builder. Those are directed more towards the users or the owners who can use that space within the condominium. And we do look at that as an overall of how are we delivering that service to the community. With respect to things like construction traffic noise and mitigating that, we do work through that with the developers to the extent that we can. We do ask that they do daily cleaning of roads, for example, in terms of mud tracking. We do identify areas where the trades are able to park, et cetera. So we do look to mitigate that to the extent that we can, and we do have a good working relationship with Mattamy to ensure that they are following that. We've experienced that through other building sites in North Oakville as well. Mattamy does want to be a good corporate citizens and to that extent, and so that they will work with us to ensure that we're mitigating throughout the entire area. We do understand that there is a disruption to residents in that area, and we want to minimize that to the extent that we can.
And can we require Mattamy to build extra parks?
No, not at this point, Mr. Mayor. We do have a set amount that is established, that was established through the North Oakville Secondary Plan. So there's a fixed amount of parkland. That said, through these types of developments, we do work with a developer to augment that set amount by having private space, which is open as additional amenity space, whether that's outdoor play area, whether that's other amenities that form part of the condominium.
And will you be able to speak with them about escalating those private amenity spaces? Because these people are obviously residents and owners.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Actually, my son.
Oh, all right.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I have a quick question, just to, I guess, understand a bit more about this, I guess, housekeeping matter. One thing that I'm kind of confused about is, I know that OPA 321 was, I guess, amended or done, whatever it's called, in 2018.
It was adopted.
Yes. But I guess the plan for this development occurred after 2018. So my question is, why do this housekeeping matter has to take effect if the plan or the development plan took after 2018? Does that make sense?
Yes. So typically what happens is when the official plan is amended, the existing zoning is supposed to always conform upward to the official plan. Mm-hmm. The official plan is general and the zoning is more specific. Mm-hmm. When 321 was adopted, it created the need to go down to the zoning and take the FSI out because the FSI was removed from the official plan there. Mm-hmm. Through Amendment 321. So that's why I called it a housekeeping matter. With or without the FSI and the zoning, there will still be construction. There will still be construction debris. There will still be noise. There'll still be, it still won't be perfect.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I understand that. I'm just trying to understand why there needs to be an amendment, despite the fact that the plan proposal was done after the fact of that zoning. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me when I remember that the province requires that the zoning has to conform upward to the OP. Okay. When you change the OP to take a piece out, FSI in this case, eventually you've got to take it out of the underlying zoning.
I see. So because this, I guess, development land was zoned previous to this 2018 amendment, then there needs to be, okay. Perfect.
That's right.
That makes sense.
The North Oakville East Secondary Plan, which is the official plan there, was adopted some time ago. God, I've forgotten the year. It's so long ago. I think it was adopted before I became mayor, but a long time ago. Councillor Elgar, when was it adopted?
2008.
We're getting consensus from the planning deck. 2008, still a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Thank you. I guess that was my question, just to understand it better. And I guess that's something that I guess you sort of mentioned a bit, but I guess in the plan that, or in the letter that we did get, for somebody to, I guess, comprehend this, it takes effort, it takes time, and I'm just thinking like for any future references for letters to explain these matters, do you think it'd be possible to put like a dumbed down version of it for like regular residents to understand? I know that's an odd request, but
Well, actually, your request is totally in sync with what this council's asked for every year I've been here. We want more, we want better, we don't call it dumb, we call it plain English. We think plain English would be a really good start. And it's helpful that to hear the feedback from you that it isn't there yet.
okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right, there being no further delegations, I will ask, I'll confine it to table. Councillor Adams.
Okay, thanks very much, and thank you very much to the delegates who joined us tonight, as well as those who joined us online at the public information meeting. I did send to the director a list of issues that I wanted to add in for them to report back on when this item comes back with a recommendation report. They were, how will there be certainty of the heights of each of the buildings proposed for the site? So we've got a 7-story and some 12-story buildings. Can we make sure that we understand how residents can be sure that they're going to get 7 and not 10 or something else at a later date? The second was, what additional privacy concern mitigations could be available to the homes to the north of the site? So talking about the view down to their backyards and so forth. 3, how can construction nuisances be mitigated for the neighboring properties? And that includes dust, noise, vibrations, and tonight we spoke about construction traffic, so if we could add construction traffic to that list. 4, are there traffic concerns with respect to the entry at William Cutmore or queuing at Dundas? And so those are, we did hear about that tonight, but that was also an item that came up earlier in discussions. And the 5th, what impact does A, removing the FSI maximum, and B, consolidating the lots have on the number of units or the square footage that will be built? So if we didn't do this, what would we get instead? One thing we didn't talk about with the residents who delegated tonight is the impact of the zoning on things like setbacks, which are other mechanisms for controlling the amount of development that happens. So how close can they be to the lot lines and so forth? That's not super clear in this report in terms of the other mechanisms by which we control the type and amount of development. And maybe that could be clearer in the recommendation report. There's one additional item that I wanted to add, which is, can staff provide maps showing the expected community amenities, including parks, schools, and other recreational infrastructure? I think that's just an important element of providing information to the public who might be looking at the report to understand that, yes, there's this development, it's got some amenities for the new residents on its site, but they're not really available to the general public. But in the broader community, there are going to be these village squares and these schools and trails that will be eventually provided to the community. So that's my list.
Thank you. Mr. Planning Director or Mr. Riaz, whoever, do you want to highlight what's on your list of issues as a result of this meeting?
Through you, Mayor Burton. In addition to the items listed in the staff report, staff will also address the following issues in the recommendation report: certainty of heights of each building proposed, mitigation measures for privacy concerns for the adjacent homes to the north, mitigation for construction nuisances, which includes dust, noise, vibrations, construction traffic, traffic concerns with respect to entry at William Cutmore Boulevard or queuing at Dundas, impacts of removing A, FSI, and B, consolidating the lots on number of units or square footage. And lastly, maps showing the expected community amenities, including parks, schools, and other community space, such as village squares or open space and trails.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much. Councillor Adams or Councillor Chinna, can I look to one of you for the indicated motion that the comments from the public with respect to this item be received and that staff consider such comments as have been provided by council and the public? Councillor Adams, thank you. Any objection? That's carried then. All right, council. We have no advisory committee minutes. We have no other public items after this. And we do have a confidential discussion, a pair of confidential discussion items. And before we resolve into a session closed to the public for that, we have a delegation, Neil Westall, appearing virtually, representing Joshua Creek Residents Association on the matter of item 8.1. And Madam Clerk, can you bring Mr. Westall in? Welcome, Mr. Westall. We can see your name, and if you'll speak, we'll see whether we can hear you or not.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Can you hear me?
Very well, thank you very much. Please share your information with us.
Thank you. This is, I'm really putting forward the comments from the Joshua Creek Residents Association on the applicant's responses with respect to the warehouses on Winston Churchill Boulevard, which do not appear to be consistent with what the town has required. May I have the next slide, please? This is just to show you the kind of size of warehouse. One of these large warehouses here is about 1.3 million square feet, and that is about the size of the two warehouses put together on Winston Churchill Boulevard. They're quite large, in short. Can I have the next slide, please? Here shows the Winston Churchill is running bottom right to top left here. The two properties involved are on the east side of, the west side of Winston Churchill. And as you can see, they're immediately adjacent to a bunch of residential areas, including the Aspen Forest Park up there, the Aspen Forest neighborhood as a whole. Can I have the next slide, please? This shows that these two warehouses proposed at the bottom there, 772 WCB and 560, are only two of several warehouses being developed and or built and or in operation in the general area. In other words, there's a lot of traffic and a lot of noise and a lot of disturbance that will be happening, and most of the other ones are nowhere near the residential areas. Can I have the next slide, please? To get to the nuts of it here, we have concerns about the two site applications for 560 and 772. And we're asking two questions, really. Why is council's mandated condition, which I'll get to in a second and describe it, being ignored for the site plan approval of two warehouse developments totaling 1.3 million square feet that can operate 24/7 adjacent to an established neighborhood? The second question is, why did the applicants, their consultants and peer reviewer choose or accept 8550 Boston Church Road as a proxy to determine if the trip generation rates for the 560 and 772 met the town's condition, which was to evaluate the ultimate operating condition of the site based on full build-out. Just to remind anybody, on June 27th, Development Council added this condition to both site plan applications. This condition has not been met. The owner shall evaluate the ultimate operating condition of the site based upon full build-out and identify any required traffic, noise, and vibration measures prior to final approval of the site plan. This evaluation shall be reviewed by the town's peer review consultants at the expense of the owner. Installation of any mitigation measures identified by the evaluation shall be incorporated into the final plans and studies and implemented prior to occupancy of any of the proposed building. At the June 27 Development Council meeting, both owners presented a commitment letter that outlined a number of items, including the following provision. The owner will undertake not to occupy the buildings on the easterly portion of the properties, which abut Winston Churchill Boulevard, in advance of the commencement of the exterior construction of the buildings located on the western portion of the properties. That means that what they're saying is that they won't occupy those buildings on the east until the ones on the west have been at least started. This was not really what the idea was. The JCRE would like to see this provision amended to ensure that the buildings that act as a sound barrier for residents, in other words, those on the west, are constructed first, not last. The wording on this clause does not address this concern. Can I have the next slide, please? Both applicants submitted updated reports in late 2023 and early 2024 that did not provide an evaluation of the, quote, ultimate operating conditions of the warehouse based on full build-out, unquote. Instead, both the consultants and the town's peer reviewer compared their original traffic studies for 560 and 772 Winston Churchill to trip generation rates for a Lowe's warehouse at 8850 Boston Church Road in Milton. It was identified by the municipality as a proxy for the Winston Churchill warehouse. Now, I think it was the municipality that suggested that. It might have been the region. I don't think that they chose it themselves, but we'll get to that. The peer reviewer identified that the trip generation rates at 8550 in Milton were significantly lower than the trip generation rates used in the studies submitted for 560 and 772 Winston Churchill. The report states that 560 and 772 ITE, that is Institute of Traffic Engineers, trip generation rates, in other words, the standard for the industry, are 53% and 46% higher than the proxy trip generation rates for AM and PM hours respectively. The report goes on to state that the 560 and 772 trip ITE generation rates are found to be conservative when compared to the proxy site. The finding says nothing about whether the trip generation rates of at 560 and 772 Winston Churchill actually represent the ultimate operating conditions of the warehouses based on full build-out, a condition for site plan approval. It only confirms that the proxy is an underutilized warehouse that has had very low trip generation rates during the study period in mid-2023. There was no examination of the operating level of this Milton warehouse, which was sold by Lowe's to a private equity firm in early 2023 and likely undergoing reconstruction. It should have been determined that it was not an acceptable proxy by determining the ultimate operating condition of the two development sites based on full build-out. As a result, the D6 land compatibility report and related traffic, air quality, and noise and vibration studies were not updated by the applicant. May I have the next slide, please? Our traffic analysis used calculations of estimated heavy truck trips in and out of the warehouses based upon the Institute of Traffic Engineers rates. The ITE represents the industry standard, as I've mentioned, in traffic with over 17,000 members in 92 countries, including more than 2,000 in Canada. So in short, those are pretty well-established standards. The ITE generation rates are consistent with the trip generation rates used for the 551 and 759 Winston Churchill warehouses under construction nearby in Mississauga, which you may remember from slide 2 were across the eastern side of Winston Churchill. And they have used an average ITE peak AM vehicle rate of 0.17 per 1,000 square meters of warehouse floor space. And that determines the total number of vehicles. And the ITE rate of 34% of heavy truck rate to determine the number of heavy trucks as a percentage of the total vehicle. The consultants for the Winston Churchill warehouses on our side deviated from using ITE industry average rates and instead used observed rates from the proxy at 8550 Boston, which our analysis demonstrates is an underutilized facility and does not represent the ultimate operating condition of the warehouses at full build-out. One of the issues here, as a slight digression, these site plan applications were submitted, and there is no indication of who might occupy them in the end. One of them has a strangely high building, which suggests that maybe they know something that we don't with respect to who's going to use it. But at the minute, we don't know who's going to use it, which is the reason why we've been worried about the whole question of ultimate build-out and the the performance at the eventual ultimate build-out. If we compare the Proxy's total vehicles and heavy truck numbers using the ITE average all vehicles rate of 0.17, we find that Boston Church has 104 observed vehicles equals a 0.08 AM observed rate. And this is versus the ITE average rate at 0.17, which equates to 221 vehicles. In other words, 5.5 times the number of vehicles are expected if the ITE average rates are used compared to those that were used by utilizing the comparison with a proxy site by the developers and their consultant. As a result, the peer reviewer and consultant's finding both failed to satisfy the council's condition requiring the consultants to evaluate the site's ultimate potential upon full build-out. Now the next slide, please. This is further confirmed from a review of the truck trips projected for the two warehouse developments under construction at 759 Winston Churchill and 551 Avonhead on the Mississauga side of Winston Churchill, south of Royal Windsor. The consultants for these developments used rates equal to or very close to the ITT 150 rates, an AM peak rate for all vehicles of 0.17, which is the same as the IT average rate, and an AM heavy truck rate of 34%, the 35% ITE rate. On a combined basis, these two developments are 15% larger, but have 24 fewer loading docks than 560 plus 772. So this is a reasonable comparison. The peak heavy truck count of 44 truck trips in the studies for 560 and 772 is only 52% of the 85 trips estimated for 759 and 551. This is a further indication that the 560 and 772 reports do not represent the optimal operating capacity at full build-out. Additionally, there are no measures in the consultant's report to provide protection to residents from noise, vibration, and air quality, nor are there remediation requirement recommendations for 1, gaps in noise walls, 2, inadequate chain fencing, that should be at a high-quality noise wall, 3, gaps in berms, etc., to prevent residents from heavy truck noise, including backup beepers, and 4, trucks coupling and uncoupling at the loading docks, pallets from forklifts, in other words, all the usual noises that come off a warehouse system. And also, particularly, nothing has been discussed or shown with respect to the poor air quality resulting from trucks idling on site in Winston Churchill Boulevard, queuing to enter and exiting the site. The peer reviewer and consultant's findings both failed to satisfy the council's conditions of measuring the site's ultimate operational potential on full build-out. The underutilized proxy warehouse in Milton may have been used to deflect attention away from an issue that the industry average rates and the Mississauga trip generation studies so clearly demonstrate. There was, in our opinion, a lack of due diligence in determining whether the proxy warehouse was operating at optimal operating levels. No logistics experts appear to have been retained to undertake this critical analysis despite recommendations and numerous requests from the residents. Next page, please. So the town, JCRE requests that the town mandate the applicants to provide 1, a combined 560 and 772 full capacity utilization analysis of heavy transport truck movements on site during peak hours of operation using ITE average rates in line with the rates used at 551 Avonhead and 759 Winston Churchill on the Mississauga side. 2, a seasonal bulge factor of plus 30% to represent seasonal bulges during the year as a protection for residents under the worst case scenario. An analysis that omits seasonal peaks by definition is not full capacity utilization.
Mr. Westall, you're out of time, and we're happy to take this information as read. You don't need to read it to us. And I'm hopeful that you could wrap up since you're so far over time now.
Well, we're just about there, sorry. The combined traffic noise and vibration and air quality studies need to be properly evaluated at peak operating capacity. The combined impact of both whale houses will impact Aspen Forest or Aspen Forest residents. And since noise, vibration, and air quality do not respect property lines. And then analysis and recommendations to mitigate adverse traffic, noise, vibration, and air quality emissions. And then I think I've got a couple of points on the final slide. If I may have the next one.
Well, Mr. Westall,
Sure.
you've
Yep.
You've said several of these things many times, and I think you can trust that council got it every time you said it. And this is not the first time we've seen this material either. So we have your material, we appreciate it, and it will figure in our consideration of what to do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Stand by. Councillor Hazlet-Deal has a question or two for you.
Thank you, Neil, for coming out on behalf of JCRA. So in the letters that you've sent, and you've sent now on several occasions, you consistently are just asking for what this council agreed was an important condition, and that we hire the experts necessary and do the due diligence necessary to ensure that the neighboring residential community has the appropriate mitigations for the ultimate operating condition. That's what you're here to tell us tonight, correct?
That's basically accurate, yes.
And the fact that you've called out, go ahead, sorry.
No, these conditions were established, and in our view, we don't see that the consultants are providing that information.
Well, I want to thank JCRA for their diligence, because from a research perspective, this is like role model stuff. I mean, they have done yeoman's work to show us that the devil is in the detail and in the facts. And when we have 104 versus 221 trucks, when we have neighboring facilities that truly have used the experts reporting fact-based amount of truck traffic, I'm sure our council colleagues understand the importance of this, and we look forward to finding a resolution for you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Westall, for the time you took to prepare that and present it to us. And there'll be a decision later, and I'm sure you'll find out from your counselors and everyone. So thanks very much for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Sure. All right. Council, I think now we need a mover and seconder for a complicated motion, which I need to read into the record, so everybody's patience is solicited. We need a motion to go into a session closed to the public, as these matters may be considered in the absence of the public under Section 239, Sub 2 of the Municipal Act, because they deal with the following. For 8.1, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And for 8.2, information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a crown agency of any of them, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Who wants to be the mover for that? Councillor Giddings, thank you. Any objection? Madam Clerk, there being none, that carries. And now, Council, it usually takes 5 or 6 minutes to flip all the technology over. Maybe this is your 5-minute break. We're in recess until we resume in camera. Hello, council is now resuming a public session, having been meeting in a session closed to the public under the provisions of the Municipal Act. I'm looking for a motion to deal with 8.1 and 8.2. The motion for 8.1 is that staff be authorized to proceed in appeals of site plan applications related to 560, 570, 580, and 772 Winston Churchill Boulevard in accordance with the report from the legal department dated August 7th, 2024. I need only one hand. Councillor Hazardil, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that's carried. Next one that we need is that the Midtown Transit-Oriented Community Update Report dated August 12th, 2024 be received. Councillor Giddings, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that's carried. And there it is. We now need a motion to rise and report to council. Councillor Longo, thank you. And I rise and report the committee of the whole. Oh, I'm assuming there's no objection, but I should say it's carried. I rise and report that the committee of the whole has met and has made recommendations on consent items 4.1 to 4.8, public meeting 6.1, and confidential items 8.1 and 8.2. A mover and seconder to adopt the report is in order. Councillor Shi and Councillor Chisholm, thank you. Any objection? That carries, and that means that the report is adopted. Is there any new business of an emergency, congratulatory, or condolence nature that any member would like to bring forward? Would two members like to move and second consideration and reading of the bylaws? Councillor Lischina and Councillor Adams, thank you. Any objection? There being no objection, the bylaws are considered read and passed, and that ends the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for the hard work you put in. It's been terrific working with you, and the meeting is over.